Hello everyone, it's Sloth here. Today we are going with the DIMIR control deck, but it won't be a typical control deck. It will be a KEFNET based deck. So for those of you that do know this card, it's pretty sweet, but for those that do not, it's a 4 mana, 4/5 flying creature, and every time you draw a card for the first time this turn, so every draw step from your turn, and if you draw anything on the enemy turn, it also counts for the draw and the trigger. If you hit, like you reveal the top card from your deck, and if it's an instant or sorcery, you can copy it with the discount, 2 mana discount. So that's amazing, and the whole deck that you can see here is based on this effect. So the idea is that after we hit KEFNET and we get to draw 1 or 2 times, we should probably be buried in card advantage. And it's also tempo advantage because everything just comes faster. So as you can see, the whole deck is built around it, and we have even more like cute stuff because we also substitute part of our land base with the double-edged, the land spell cards, and when you reveal those, they count as a spell, a sorcery spell or an instant spell, and they get discount. So right now you can play this land and get 1 mana scry of 6 cards, for example, or you can have 1 mana discard enemy card from the hand and still have a land. So when it works, it's amazing synergy and it really speeds you up. So honestly, I had opponents that gave up after seeing 1 removal spell that's removed, and as you can see, KEFNET discounts by 2 colorless mana, so only the colorless mana is discounted. And as you can see here, all of our cards are made specifically so they have this 2 colorless mana card cost. So Raska is for 2 mana, those cards are for 1 mana. You can use 1 black mana for removals. You can even use Shadow Verdict for 3 mana, which is insane. It also helps if you have 4 mana, you can't get a land drop, and you only have 4. So without the discount, you wouldn't be able to cast it. With it, sometimes you can. So those are the small things. And also, we have synergy with the Arund, because his Raven form gives you Scry too. So you can just, shuffle things, so you can play the big cards with discount. And let me tell you, if you are able to use 6 mana and then scry 4 and draw 4, this will win you a game. Especially late game when, for example, you are at 8-9 mana, you still get to hold the counter spell. So things like this just win you the game outright. If you have hit Shadow Verdict against any kind of aggro deck, you wipe everything for 3 mana and you still have a wipe. At this point they see it and they usually concede. So this is a very good synergy if it works, and 4 mana isn't huge for KEFNET, and he's very durable, so often you can just block with it and just, slow the game enough that if the enemy can't directly remove it, he just falls behind in 2 turns. We also have Arund Epiphany. It also synergizes very well with the KEFNET because this is on the draw step. So if you get additional turn, you get additional chance to trigger this. However, you need additional mana on top of this. So you need at least 7 mana to benefit from this. However, if you filter it and have 7 mana, it's worth enough. So if you hit Silundi, Pelaka Predation or Removal, it's already worth it, and you get additional turn with everything, so it's just good. Especially that KEFNET is a flyer, so he always hit the enemy in the face. Nearly. Not always, but you know the idea. So that's the idea behind this deck. Is it very competitive? I would say it isn't. It's for sure not tier 1. However, when you go for gold and platinum, generally you will win quite a lot. So it's solid deck, is very fun, especially when you start copying the spells and the enemy just sees your 2 mana removals with exile effect and gain life and everything. So it's fun to play. and it's pretty strong. It's not tier 1, but definitely it's playable, and you can probably go to diamond without much trouble with this. I'm not sure about mythic. I think you shouldn't, but you know, it depends. So I don't think it's worth crafting exclusively to play this deck, unless you want to have a lot of fun. If you are a guy who wants the, you know, much fun interactions, that's a really nice deck to play, and I will keep it and I will play for sure. I really enjoy the KEFNET idea, and I think this deck tries to bring the best from him, especially that you can even small things like font size. It's just so fun. You get to double everything you have. So one last synergy that it's not easy to spot at the first glance. You can actually cycle the sensor on the enemy turn, and this counts as a draw. So it's 1 mana, trigger KEFNET. So even if you play it, the enemy removes it on his turn, you still can benefit from it. So, you know, a lot of small things. And I assume you are bored to death with this story, but I just like DIMIR and KEFNET decks too much. So let's go to the games, and remember, if you like the channel, subscribe. I will try to make as much videos as possible, and I enjoy the DIMIR and Esper, so if you are one of those guys, I am pretty sure you will like the content. So enjoy the games, and thanks. So the enemy is probably some graveyard deck, so it's either white or I would go with Rakdos. And we have a good hand, at least for like the draw side. On the draw we want as many removers as possible, and we won't be playing this one because we don't have 1 mana play, and this makes this untapped. We don't want to play the opposite, because then we might draw another catacomb, and it's better to have island than the other thing. Okay, and this is the enchantment deck, so we want to remove all those core spirit dancers, and I think the Auramancer or something like this. So the creatures that lets you draw cards whenever you cast an aura spell. So we'll just try to kill them all game long. And he plays it right now. It means that he doesn't have instants that protect his creatures in those 4 cards. And that's good for us. So we want to kill it as soon as possible. We cannot go with the anything more, but we have Shadow Verdict very soon. I don't think Sensor would be very good here. Like, it will counter something, but it will be 2 mana for 1 mana. That's interesting. Okay. So I wonder, will he play both? Okay. That's interesting play. This is not like the perfect card. Okay, let's think. So next turn we probably main phase kill this, then he plays this and has 2 mana more. Okay, so we have no like place for not cycling this. And that's not great because we aren't sure if we get the verdict. Enemy still has some cards. We cannot allow this to stay because it's possible we just die next turn. If we don't draw land next turn, it will be bad, but I think we need to do it to slow him down as much as possible. It's technically 1 for 2 with this remover, but he already drew cards for the enchantment, so it's not really there. Okay, and he didn't play anything else, which is amazing for us. He might still kill us, but I think it's possible he won't, so let's just draw. We are a bit clocked with the things that we should get before, but we didn't. And I think I'll take 1 land. And at this point we don't need the Pain Land, because we have enough mana for everything, so let's just go with untapped one, in case we draw something good. Silundi might be very good. Maybe not very good, but it might be useful later. So let's now see how high he will go with this. Like, he can buff it to 11, 13, I think, easily. If he gets everything that glitters, then it could be... Okay, okay. That wasn't as bad as I thought it will. Okay, so right now we know what he removes. That was a good draw from him. That was the perfect one. Because next time we would clear everything, and then he cannot use even lures. So that was actually the best play he could get. Let's go with the KEFNET, and at this point we need land, so we won't have time. Epiphany isn't worst, but it's too slow right now. However, if KEFNET stays and we draw land, then the Epiphany would be amazing. So he has 5 mana. Okay. So he tries to kill the creatures so he gets the engine going, and he starts having enough enchantments to just cycle all the mana. He didn't play land, so he actually has 1 mana more. This... okay, I think it doesn't use abilities, and the ability is the most important part. It loses all abilities. Okay, that's not great. So, we didn't get a land, which is bad, but we got this, and that's great. So let's just go for the obvious play. Right now there's nothing we can do better, and this should give us some room. This cannot block, so no reason not to just pay it anytime you can. Lurus isn't so horrible here for him, because he can use enchantments anyway. So at this point the tomes are really good, so let's just play those. And I would play KEFNET if I could, but it's a bit too early. We lack 1 mana. So the enemy will play Lurus, then all that glitters probably, or something that draws cards, but he doesn't have it. So maybe the Demonic Vigor. I don't think he will attack with the Fame. I actually see that he didn't draw any mountains, so yeah, I'm a bit dumb. He cannot do it, at least right now. So now the question, what he will take? I think... okay, that's a safe choice. I don't mind it from his side. All that glitters would be nice, but only the next turn, not this turn. And at this point we just want to check what's going on. Languish. That's a good card. Forces him to replay the Lurus. So let's take it. I wish we had KEFNET. And actually you can tap it on the first phase, on the upkeep. However, I'm not sure if then... yeah, I think draw is after the upkeep, so that would make sense. So next turn he can actually start using the abilities. So first let's draw. That's not the optimal one, but that might come handy. So we are between this and this mana. We could also just play the KEFNET right now. How many of those? We already wasted 2. So we don't have much graveyard counterplay anymore. Only Cling to Dust, I think. And I think this will kill us if it stays. And we will draw cards, so we might as well do it right now. So let's see if the enemy has some kind of +2/+2. It won't work, buddy. But that's not how it works. Because protection gives you untargetability, if you can say this. So it can be targeted, deal damage and so on, but it doesn't do any of those things. And we will make a stop here, so we can use KEFNET ability, even though he's tapped. Thank you. So he will be a flyer right now. Which is actually funny, because he actually didn't have fly, thanks to Heliod punishment. So I think the enemy didn't have an engine, and that was the problem, because if you get only enchantments and lands, the deck just doesn't work anymore. I'm not sure if he made mistake. I think that was a good call. And finally the enemy goes first. We have Thoughtseize with good swamp, but not really anything else. Oh man, if that's some kind of aggro, that's horrible hand. I will mulligan it. And I will keep this one. Elrond is fine as a 2 mana drop. I think we actually could go for the KEFNET, but it's not a bad card, so let's go with this one. The Bog could be very useful depending on the matchup, and I think it won't be good. Like, it's a great card, but it's for specific matchups, obviously. So for the others it's just a land and you don't... Okay. I wonder what is the third color. Anyway, we will go for the swamp. So let's just do it now. And let the enemy play. Of course we will keep it as long as we can and just play other things. We aren't in any kind of problem right now, so let's go with this one. Especially those are the colors that can run counterspell very often. I'm not sure if this is the deck, but it seems to be some kind of control, Planewalker. Okay, so it might be adventure deck. Not sure why this though. And I think we prefer to draw than to scry, because our life total is 20 still, so not really any reason to. I don't think this deck uses the graveyard, honestly. However, like, our odd plays are the most important, so 2, 4, 6 mana. So worst case we can go with the 5 turn with 4 mana, so I prefer to keep it a bit longer, just to confirm. And this also shows the counterspell potential. So currently I want to draw some cards and see what the enemy does. Next turn KEFNET is very possible. Okay, and the enemy hand doesn't seem to be very perfect. So that's good for us. Unless the enemy thinks we have counter spells. And he should think it, because we obviously have counter spells, as you can see. So honestly, we are in such a good position right now that I don't really need to play anything. The enemy doesn't have like small threats probably, or he just draws them one by one. So we have a lot of time. Yeah. So the perfect scenario is to play lands and draw cards and counter everything that's scary, and that's it. As long as the enemy doesn't break this, we are better in the long run. So no reason to just rush everything. Especially that it's possible he has the good cards, but he thinks we have counter spells. And that's the reason why he doesn't play those. And I think that's a good turn to go second tome. It's possible we won't be using both at the same time, but it forces enemy to do something this turn. So he has 4, 5, 7, 8 mana possibly. It's either two 4 mana spells or one big one. And big ones aren't the scariest one. This one is scary. We prefer to counter it, and maybe he has negate. I think this deck sometimes has negate. I'm not sure if it's a main deck. And we generally want to counter this, because if you counter the card that he gets, this one is in the adventure zone. And you don't really want this, because then he can trade lands for this card whole game. You have some ways around it, but it's just better to not trouble with it. Okay. And let's pretend we have counter spells. We have such a huge advantage right now that we do not want to rush things. And if I tap out, then the enemy knows that I have nothing. Lucky Clover is super good for him. If we draw, then the enemy knows that we don't have counter spells. However, I think it's important enough that we do it anyway. Okay, so our main focus is just to draw a lot. Sensor. I don't think it will be useful. So let's just cycle it for something better. And we sure have a lot of stuff right now. Okay, so probably KEFNET is the most important. So let's start with the KEFNET and see what the enemy does. Especially it doesn't die to Lucky Clover, a double giant. So he needs 2 giants to make it work. He doesn't have the mana, however theoretically he can have this. Not sure if he's unlucky or he just doesn't play any red cards. So what will be the second card? And we don't tap it to pretend we have counter spells. The enemy probably knows that we didn't have it last turn. This isn't the worst, but it's also not the best. So we let those trigger. And we want to discard this one. Like, Passage isn't a land in itself, so if we have a lot, we just prefer to get more value. We could thin the deck, but we have a lot of cards and one land won't make a difference. Okay, and this is the draw that we didn't want for the enemy. This one sucks. So we will need to find a way to deal with this one. And now the enemy definitely knows that we don't have counter spells. Okay, I can work with this. So that's interesting. I think this makes a bit more interesting game. The enemy has some cards, so let's just check on those. With 1 mana we won't have anything better. Wow. So, the second Ugin. Unfortunately we didn't get any answer to this one. So it's possible he ultimates next turn. Worst case we could go for Alrund, ask for instant, and maybe we get Vraska Contempt. However, I really hoped that we get it without additional help. So now, how do we play it? The enemy can ultimate and probably will, so Pelaka will be for later. Alrund is good, but not fast enough. And with Clover, a lot of lands, the enemy can do a lot. So Verdict probably stays for the Flute turn. And let's just go for the Behold and see what we get. We have 4-5 mana. We don't need this one. This one can be very handy after he draws, because now he can ultimate and draw 7 cards, so that might be good. And I'm not sure if we draw the Vraska, so it's very low percent, so let's just go with the sure draw. We can cycle this one as well. And this is some decent draw. Okay. So now the War of the Titans. We have how many cards? 16 in our hand. The enemy will have around 4 or 5 at the end of the turn. And we can counter one of those. And this is one of the very few situations where this allo would be better. So this is the 3 mana counter spell that can counter abilities. Enjoy the draw. So probably we counter something and then go maybe for 1 or 2 Pelaka Predation and then keep playing from there. We have 26 cards, so at some point we need to play Alrund. Oh, ouch. Yeah, I might have forgotten about the other part of this card. Yeah, that might be the case. Who knows? Hard to say. Didn't expect Lamok. Like, that was a bit obvious, I guess, but now we need Vraska even more.
The land fights for us.
And that's a very good call. So he used it on Indestructible land, because he knows we will have some removal anyway. But still, even if we cannot kill it, and I think it might still die, because it's not really damage, it just is a creature with 0 toughness. Yeah, so it dies. But that was a good call from him. Maybe not the perfect, but good enough. And I want to keep my Helpless Act, they are useful generally. However, this will be a problem with the card draw. Like, I can make a bigger creature, this one will be bigger. But I think that's what we do. We try to make a one-hit kill. And I think it might be... it's not huge enough. This will be 19. Like, we can grow our hand quite a bit, but I don't think it will be enough. The enemy might not know this though. And this will kill it anyway. So I actually think the enemy has us. This is colorless and 10 mana, so it won't get exiled. We cannot draw cards in any way, except maybe this one, but we won't have enough. So I think we will just try to bluff it. How much mana? If we want to bluff it, let's just go like this. And we go for instant, and maybe we get Raska Contempt. I think it might be the best way that we can get out of this situation, but we didn't get it. So after the attack we have 4 cards only. We need to counter this one. But then the copy gets it. Okay, so I don't think there's any way for us to do anything more. That was a very nice game from the enemy. I think we had it. Probably I misplayed. I think I went too slow. It should be just pure aggression from the early game, because he didn't do much, so probably we should go with the KEFNET. I just gave him too much time and, well, didn't have anything to like keep Ugin small. And then Ulamog sealed the deal. But that was a nice game.
With